young cellists. Today is the second lesson on the Sarabande, with a few technical ideas beforehand and the second line of Feuillard's fifth study. Let's begin with an idea for a warm-up, and I'm going to suggest you just take your C major scale, and it could just be 2 octaves, to remind ourselves about clean rotation across the instrument in first position. And for those of you who might want a little bit more challenge, I might suggest that you could take a 6th scale in C major, because in the Sarabande we're looking at these 2 6s at the top, so you could quite happily play. You can take a really calm tempo with that, and you can find that scale in your scale book, book 6 to 8 with the ABRSM. It's actually at the back of the book in the grade 8 section. It's got all the finger solutions in there. The thing to really notice if you do want to take that challenge up is that there's a repeating pattern in 2 parts. So you're beginning in 2nd position, this pair of notes, and that later on, a bar later, you're in the same position with exactly the same hand pattern. And in between those 2 chord pairs that I've given you, you have first position, and then finally. So you can see there's a lot of repetition and sequence in there, and that makes things really easy to remember and therefore improve your learning. The other tip about any double stop scale is to have a lovely flat bow here, so that you're really balanced on the 2 strings that you're working on. And opposite to what you might think, is actually less work, less pressure is required through the bow arm to do that. Just let gravity and balance on the strings work for you, and then you'll find a slightly more open sound, like your rib cage is opening. There's a challenge. I'm also going to look at a very simple bow warm-up, and it's one that we've normally or often done on the C string, where we're looking at low arm weight and drawing breath and gravity together. I'm going to take that exercise, which we know as the low C exercise, onto the A string. Now here, of course, you don't have gravity going with you as you approach the point of the bow, but we need to develop a good control of the strength in the upper part of the bow, which, as I remind you, is the forearm muscle is what you're going to use, not elevation and leverage from this way. Just the muscle itself is absolutely fine. It's a really simple exercise. So we start at the heel, and we're going to crescendo to point with flat hair. And be aware of your breath when you do that. You can go at the speed of your breath. And this will be directly used in part of the Sarabande like this, which is in the second line that we'll be looking at today. And that part of the architecture needs a rise and a dynamic rise and a strength and power as you get to the point, which is of course far away from powerhouse here. So being flat hair and using that forearm muscle will give you the strength and ability to make a beautiful rise without it sounding forced. Right, next part of this lesson is looking at the second line of Feuillard's 5th study, which we were looking at whole bows, and some being slow speed bows and some being fast, because we might have 2 crotchets in one bow stroke and just 1 in the next. So the second line is exactly this on an up bow. The first 3 of those bars are very much exactly the same pattern, which is a swift bow. sorry, it's slightly slower than that. The swift one's on the down bow. Here we are. But we must be careful that the down bow, which is the third beat, isn't too heavy, because it shouldn't be in a 3-beat structure. It's typically 1, 2, 3. Although I will remind you that in the saraband we're looking at 1, 2, 3. But in neither case will we want a heavy third beat. So this first part of that phrase again. So you can see you can really lean on the first beat, which is again about being strong and powerful at the point, flat bow hair, using your forearm muscle. Then this next stroke is light and swift. Back to the point, same thing again. This time we are transitioning across the string. Fairly easy because it's just the next door string. But watch out now. We're about to move to the C string. Now for this we need rotation in both arms. If you see, rotation from the left and the right. And that as we do the right rotation, it will seem from where you're sitting like your bow is pointing right away from you in order to be perpendicular to the string, right angle to the string. And that will mean you can speak properly. And we'll arrive here. At this point in the line, we're changing from 2 notes slurred and a single to a single and 2 notes slurred. So the feeling of the bow speed may make you feel slightly uneasy unless you recognise that consciously. So the 4th bar, the one I've played, into the 5th bar is like this. So we have a slow bow, fast, fast, slow. Slow, fast, fast, slow. So it's changing the pattern. I'll show you again. And the final few bars are actually very comfortable. You get a lovely push on the up and a steady down on the 2nd and 3rd beats, which could also be useful for us if we then tried this same line thinking about a slightly emphasised 2nd beat if we're thinking about preparing for the saraband and the feeling of saraband. Let's try the whole line, firstly with the 1st beats slightly emphasised, and then we'll try it with the 2nd. Here's the 1st beat. And now we'll try this with 2nd beat emphasised. Bear in mind the study wasn't written for that purpose, and it's really more like a psychological challenge to see if we can actually change where the emphasis is. One of those, I think my 1st beat was stronger than the 2nd. See if you can tell which that was. But it's certainly a very useful method to getting prepared for the saraband. I would suggest that you need not play as quickly as I've demonstrated. It would be absolutely fine for something like this. And in that last slower version, you might have also noticed in the 2nd half how I kept my 4th finger on the D despite changing what the lower note was. Rewind, have another look and see if you can do that. Moving on, we're on to the saraband, still in the 1st section, but the 2nd phrase. This is starting at bar 5. Remembering, as I've been telling you, the 2nd beat is the emphasised beat in the saraband, and you can see it in the writing. The 2nd beat in bar 5 has got a long note on it, a dotted quaver. The 2nd beat in bar 6 has got not only a dotted quaver long beat, but a trill as well. And an ornament in this period is absolutely indicative of an important place, a place to bring emphasis. So you can see that's really quite dramatic, and it's on a C sharp, which for those of you who like your theory is the leading note to the dominant of our tonic key. So C sharp leads to D, D is the dominant because it's a fifth apart from the G, and G is our key note, our key of the entire suite. The bar 7 is the one that I showed you earlier with the bow stroke. And you can hear it really wants to rise to that final D, and that D is the arrival on the second beat of the dominant. And in fact, we're moving into a dominant cadence. We have moved to D major, so that the final bar, bar 8, that again moves to the second beat being the important one here, and the third beat is just an affirmation at an octave lower, kind of a response to that. So looking at the actual notes from bar 5, we've got a second position beginning here. At this point we're moving a semitone forward to third position. Bring your first finger in. Now these positions are also exactly the positions we looked at in the first minuet, beginning of the second section, which begins exactly this. And that we're in the same place, the hand is doing the same sort of shape and moves at bar 5 of the Sarabande. From D major to G major. Once you've moved up to this B, we've got this C sharp trill, really leaning on this one. And that you want to really hold the string with your bow after the trill. Don't let go of the pressure and the tension and the thrill. Keep it going. You know that the beginning of that scale comes back to the C sharp and off it goes, rising to add in a seventh. We arrive at this G, which is part of a dominant seventh of the dominant key. Hope you're following. Trust me on it, but those who love their theory, you might like to know that. So we've gone up the A major, A7 chord. And at this point where we're crossing over the string, keep a nice flat bow hair so you can get power and strength as we crescendo through. And then come back nice and easy, stay where you are, across the string. First position in couplets. And what I mean by that, and you can hear, is a lean release, lean release. It's a really lovely feeling. Where physically what you're doing is a slightly faster speed at the beginning and then slowing down. And it does feel like a little saucer shape, and that's the feeling in your arm. I'll show you again. And then we move into the final cadence. And for the first time that we play this section, that's the bowing I would select, where we have all four together, these semiquavers, landing on up bow here, down, ready for the repeat. But the second time that we play the cadence at bar 8, choose a different bowing. Instead, we will go like this. So that you'd be ready for a down bow in bar 9. I'll just reiterate that. Second time you play bar 8, separate the C sharp semiquaver with a new bow. But the first time, play them all together so you can do the repeat. So from bar 5, actually let's just play the whole of the first section today. Let's do that. Isn't it lovely? It's just so calm. Anyway, I hope you enjoy your explorations of the first half of the Sarabande. See you soon. Bye.